never forget this very interesting story of a married man who came to me, I think, 3 months into his marriage. And then he said, I can't believe my wife is pregnant already. I said, you cannot believe, as in, say, I wasn't planning for her to be pregnant by this time. I said, okay, did you have unprotected sex? He said, yes. So I said, how were you not planning? What do you mean you were not planning? We just laughed about it. I congratulated him, and all of that. I'm not here to talk about marriage or family planning. I'm actually here to talk about temptation. And that's how that many times we are focused on trying to stop the fruit when we are still planting seeds. And there's an old saying, if you don't want to eat the food, don't smell it. When it comes to overcoming temptation, you have to control your exposure. A lot of people, they are dancing in the fire, expecting not to be burnt. And you're not Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. One of the surest ways to overcome temptation is to control your exposure. All right. See, let me tell you this. When it all comes down to it, we are all getting better, getting stronger at overcoming temptation. For some of us, our environment is just wrong. And some people expose themselves so poorly that even the best of us will scarcely stand if they were in their shoes. And that is why the best and most effective way to overcome temptation is to avoid it as much as possible. The godly advice still remains: flee youthful lust. 2 Timothy 2:22. Flee youthful lust. When you can run away. All right, and just avoid unnecessary exposure. Listen, we all have the temptation to be overconfident. I can tell you one thing for sure. This is something, that I had to learn. Because you see, especially when you're from a decent background and all of that, you might overestimate your strength. But the wisdom of God should be superior to your self-assessment. Joseph, leave your jacket and run. Don't stay there being strong. Leave your jacket and run. And so you must create a system, all right, that is palatable with the outcome that you want. Create a system. And when you're saying that you are seeing outcomes in your life that are inconsistent with who you are, reorganize your system again. Reorganize your system. Put new checks, new balances, and all of that. Like I've been saying in this series, remember the days of your innocence when you first came to the Lord, movies that you won't watch and things like that. And just when you became comfortable, you felt, I can handle it. That is when you started having problems. You must go back to your early innocence. Ask God to restore your sensitivity to sin and start putting structures in place. Again, you don't rise to the level of your discipline, you fall to the level of your structure. Remember, we talked about that in the first class. And that's what you want to do. The Bible says, let no one say, James 1:13, let no man say when he's tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempts he any man. But every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust, enticed. And when lust is conceived, the Greek word for conceived is literally, as we use the word today, conception, impregnation. And that's why I started with that illustration of the pregnant man who was surprised that his wife with whom he was having unprotected sex got pregnant. So you can be planting seeds and be surprised that, it is germinating, So it says when lust is conceived, it brings forth sin. You see, many people are fighting sin instead of fighting conception. That is the problem. They are fighting the sin instead of fighting the conception. And you'll be a lot better in overcoming temptation when you learn to nip things by the bud before they even germinate. In fact, don't even allow yourself close to an environment, all right? Because guess what? If you put a seed on a table, it won't grow. You created the environment, and that's why conception took place, right? I'll read 2 Peter chapter 2 from verse 6. 2 Peter chapter 2 from verse 6. The Bible says, in verse 5, the Bible says God did not spare the old world. My question is, what are you sparing? In verse 6 it says, turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making an example unto those who afterward should live ungodly. It says, and delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. Meaning, because of where Lot was living, every day his spirit was vexed. There are cities you shouldn't raise children. There's movies you shouldn't watch. There are places you shouldn't go. It will vex your righteous soul. You shouldn't subject yourself to that kind of contradiction and be trying to be strong. Don't be strong when the Bible says run. Alright? This is the wisdom of God. And then the Bible says he delivered Lot. So this is an aspect of deliverance a lot of people don't know when it comes to temptation. How does this deliverance happen? When you burn the source. When you have enough discipline to say, you know what, every other person might be handling a smartphone well, but maybe I need a fast from this. Maybe I need to do without this for a while. All things are lawful, not all things are expedient. Create a structure of discipline in your life if you really want to grow. This is something every one of us, both clergy and laity, must learn to do. I hope this blessed you.